You're looking at the big picture with Edwin Eisendrath on WCPT 820.
Okay, everybody, it's a little after 3 o'clock here in important Wisconsin, where I am today. And I am joined again by Dave Roberts. And you know him. He's joined us a lot. He has done more than anybody to help us understand climate change, both the threat, but more importantly, the really wonderful opportunities we have to address it, and some of the smart people who are doing it. But what you might not know is that David is also a guy with some hefty political opinions, which might be fun to talk about today. So, Dave, welcome back.
Yeah, I don't know if fun is quite how I would characterize today, Edwin, but thank you.
Yeah, no, I earlier on this show, we talked to an economist, and we went through Trump's claims about things like a flat tax or what immigration is doing, and just all lies, crazy stuff. I talked to somebody about the religious right who schooled us in how deeply they are sort of embedded in states and in state politics, not just at the Supreme Court, to get what they want. And you recently talked about on social media one of my all-time favorite topics, which is, of course, Project 2025 and the damage it would do to the whole country. And I know you might be bored with it already, but it would be fun for us all to have you explain to everybody why they might get used to everybody being subject to the same kind of propaganda that some people get, from Newsmax today. It might just be the way we all live in the future. Can you connect the dots?
Yeah, obviously there's a ton to say about Project 2025 beyond just this angle. I think it is the most important thing that Americans ought to be hearing about right now, and there's abysmally little coverage of it elsewhere. But my whole point, my sort of angle on it was, everybody these days has been complaining about the post-truth era we're in, and misinformation, and everybody's got their information bubbles online, and the algorithm is feeding everybody just what they want to hear, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's all, true. It's all worrisome. But what I want people to appreciate is how good we've still got it and how much worse it could get. And what I mean by that is what triggered this whole line of thinking was I was reading this guy, Noah Smith, online, was arguing, yes, crime is down under Biden, right? Because the right-wingers are out there waving the banner that crime is up, and it's just not. It's factually, it's down. But the reason he was able to make this case is that he was able to refer to official statistics, right? FBI statistics and IRS statistics. And they track these things and report them. And it's a function of the federal government that is so sort of ubiquitous, I think, and so kind of taken for granted that we barely even see it. But the federal government is responsible for producing a lot of the information that we take for granted when we have political arguments, And so I just want people to think about part of Project 2025 is not just replacing the top level of political appointees with MAGA ideologues, but firing the entire civil service all the way down to the ground level and replacing the whole thing with MAGA ideologues. That means whoever's running the FBI is going to view their job as the greater glory of Trump, right? That's what it means to be a MAGA ideologue, which means they are going to produce crime statistics that look good for Trump. They're going to view that as their job. And now think about the weather agencies, climate agencies, economic agencies. We all just take for granted that when we get a new jobs report, it's roughly accurate. It roughly reflects how many jobs were created in the country. And I think we don't know, just how good we've got it, that we have an objective fact about how many jobs were created in the last quarter, an objective fact that we can all back up against and share, even if we have different interpretations, even if we have different policy. preferences, we all share this fact, right? We all share the same objective reality. And I just want people to think about what's going to happen when MAGA ideologues take over the entire federal apparatus and you can no longer trust any of those numbers. What that means is the answer of, for instance, how much crime there is, whether crime's up or down, is just not going to have an answer. There's going to be no fact of the matter, right? You're going to have Trumpian propaganda from the government. You're going to have other people making other claims. You'll have state agencies making some claims. You'll have some private groups making other claims. It's just going to be claim versus claim versus claim. There's going to be no fact of the matter. And so we're not even going to have that anchor that we have now for the debate. We're simply not going to know how much crime there is. We're not going to know how many jobs were created. We're not going to know whether the economy is growing or shrinking. We're not going to know, do you know what I mean? Like this whole foundation of objective information that right now we just take for granted, that all goes away if Trump wins and MAGA takes over.
And this plan to put patronage army in place of civil service, this Schedule F plan, just so you guys who are listening are clear, that means that everybody in the government, they don't work for an undersecretary or a manager who is a permanent employee. Everyone in the government will work for the president.
Yes,
that's what that means.
And this is one of the many. I mean, as we are sort of stumbling into fascism, one of the things I've been thinking about a lot is how much we take for granted in this country that we've built and how fragile it is. And one of the things we've built is a federal civil service that views itself as independent and expert. Basically, it is devoted to the subject matter above all. Right. And so there's a professionalism in our civil service, which is like the envy of the world. Like you like to talk to the Chinese government. They wish they had an EPA. They wish they had objective statistics. And then they wish they had an agency that could implement its wishes. Do you know what I mean? Like the professionalism of the EPA is the envy of the world, and they just want to nuke it, And so all these federal civil service employees, these people who MAGA views as the deep state, right? It's true. There is kind of a deep state. There is a sort of quasi-permanent federal bureaucracy that views itself as independent and expert, and that does frequently thwart right-wing wishes because right-wing policies are based on fantasy. That's why the deep state is their enemy. So instead of changing their policy preferences, just things that aren't based on fantasy, they want to get rid of the objective information. That's a big part of Project 2025.
I'm so glad that you talked about the talent that's in the government. Ages ago, when in the first Clinton administration, I went to work at HUD. And HUD, was seen as a backwater agency. Certainly in the administrations before it, nobody cared about it. And I went there not knowing what I would find, and I found unbelievably talented and dedicated people. A little demoralized, for sure, but talented and dedicated. They knew the statutes that they had that governed what they were supposed to do. They knew what Congress intended. They were determined to do the job that the democracy asked them to do.
I can't tell you, Edwin, how many people I've heard say almost identical things, which is like, if you're outside the government and you just watch media, right? If you just sort of like absorb media, you get a completely surreal and distorted picture of the federal bureaucracy. So I've talked to so many people who have gotten government positions, like especially, under Biden, the climate stuff. A lot of people sort of I know and in my orbit were absorbed into the bureaucracy. And without exception, every one of them that I've talked to said, I just couldn't believe it. Everyone was so professional, everyone was so smart, and everyone was so committed to the goals. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone was committed to the principles. It's not a cronyist. You know what I mean? It's not what MAGA wants to make it. It's not what MAGA imagines. MAGA, I think, just can't imagine the idea of independent expertise, of expertise that is independent of the policy goals of the people who hire them. You know what I mean? They just can't imagine such a thing existing. But everyone I know who's gone into the federal bureaucracy has said the same thing. Like, it is incredibly impressive.
It's so impressive. And I just want to push back a little bit on the independence. The thing that they want to do is exactly what Congress asked them to do. They're not operating outside of the law. They're not operating, in a way that can't be held accountable. They're doing the job that Congress, in its infinite wisdom, set up a department to do.
Yeah, well, this gets, and I don't know if we want to get into this, of the court rulings that just came down, but, the Supreme Court just nuked the Chevron doctrine. And basically what the Chevron doctrine said was, when Congress writes a law and there's some ambiguity in it, some wiggle room, by and large, courts will defer to the expert agencies in their interpretation because the agencies are filled with smart people who understand the subject matter and know how to translate, legislative language into implementation. And the complaint from the right wing is like, oh, these are unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats, making basically legislative decisions. And I just no, they aren't. They are appointed by democratically elected administrations. That's accountability. If you have judges making those decisions, that's unaccountable, right? Because the public has no control whatsoever over SCOTUS, right? Yeah. You can't get more unaccountable than Supreme Court justices making these decisions.
And the laws are. I want to push back on the language because we're all saying the laws are ambiguous, and that is what this court said. And I agree. If the law is ambiguous, the courts have a very important role. But sometimes these laws aren't ambiguous. They say, you know what, and in order to carry out the purposes of this law, we need some expertise, and here's where we're going to find it in these departments.
Yeah, right.
It's not ambiguous. That's perfectly clear. But the Supreme Court wants to say,
the latitude they offer agencies is built into the law. It's by design. It's by design in the law. And of course, once you introduce terms like ambiguous or major doctrine, what do those mean? No one knows what those terms mean. They just mean whatever a random conservative federal judge decides they mean. So you're taking what is a relatively clear process and just throwing it into chaos. There's going to be 10 times more lawsuits now, 10 times more regulatory uncertainty, the very thing they say they hate. There's going to be way more uncertainty now because the entire, unless Congress details things down to the final dotting of I's and crossing of T's, which of course is practically impossible for a large Congress governing a large, wealthy nation with very complicated issues that just don't have the expertise. That's why we have agencies. This is just going to create absolute chaos. But of course, it fits perfectly with the MAGA vision. In the MAGA vision, the goal is the advancement of MAGA interests. And insofar as objective information comes into it, it can only mess that process up, right? So it can only be an impediment.
So the world is filled with governments who control the information that comes out, and they're lies. The statistics that you hear about, you name it, economic growth in China, they're the official statistics, and everybody says
war statistics in Russia,
war statistics in Russia.
The war is proceeding exactly as we play it,
right? So they want us. They want that. That's their idea for us. And I had this example. Somebody wrote about it, and I saw it, and it just scared me to death. So imagine you want to fly from Chicago to New York. And okay, so who's supposed to, two very crowded airports. So who's supposed to decide, what are the flight paths and, what are the landing vectors and what happens if it's windy? And the court has now just said Congress has to write all of that into law.
Yeah. Right.
Because we can't trust anybody who the government appoints to figure that stuff out. Okay, I guess we're all back to horse and buggy because no one's going to fly if we have to get rid of that. Of course,
you and I know what the goal is. The goal is just to intimidate the goal is just for Congress to do less, right? I mean, the goal is to intimidate agencies out of doing things. The goal is to restrain and cripple the federal government. There's no good faith in this. The whole point is to make it impossible to govern, to pass laws. And in the absence of that, who wins? It's whoever has power and money. That's the vision. Like, like in Russia, I just encourage everybody listening, Project 2025 is posted on the internet. You can go read it. These are not conspiracy theories, right? It's all in black and white. Go read the section on the Department of Justice, right? Because for years it's been, presidents of both parties have bragged the Department of Justice is independent. They are independent of me. They are all about the law. And insofar as they come and investigate me, I'm going to allow them to do it because I'm not, it's just like, I'm not going to intervene. It's not just that Project 2025 wants to tweak that so they can get around it. It says explicitly in the document, the Department of Justice is Trump's. It is for Trump. It is for him. It is for helping him and punishing his enemies. I mean, it says in the document. That's what the Department of Justice is for punishing Trump's enemies. Like the idea that they want to make this a tin-pot dictatorship, like a Turkey or Russia is not speculation. It is not a conspiracy theory. They say so. That is explicitly what they want.
And we have some experience with that. Bill Barr lied when an independent investigation came out about Russia to recharacterize it, lied to Congress when he was asked directly if anybody who was part of that investigation had any concerns about the way he characterized it. He put Trump's biggest critic in solitary confinement, a punishment that absolutely did not fit the crime. And he said the federal government was one more. He said the federal government. One more. The federal government was defending Donald Trump in the Stormy Daniels case when Barr was defending. That was supposedly something that the federal government should do.
And they view MAGA views Barr as an institutionalist, as part of the deep state. Like he was relatively restrained compared to what they want. You know what I mean? So that's just like a tiny little preview of what could happen.
I mean,
if a true MAGA guy gets in that position.
Yeah, we have to make Project 2025 a national bestseller. And David Pepper, who some of you know because he's been on the show a lot, David's actually a novelist when he's not doing politics, and he's actually writing a novel that is a serialized novel making reality of Project 2025 real. I think there are 3 chapters out now. You should look it up. If you're not going to read the real thing, you should read.
It looks like we're going to get to live it. I mean, this the last 48 hours have been truly
stressful,
insane and stupid. And, everybody's making an ass of themselves on all sides of everything. But it is so surreal to me that of all the dialogue about this presidential race, and there's so much of it, almost none of it is about the stakes, the policies that are going to happen depending on who wins. You know what I mean? And the funny thing is the right-wing agenda in Project 2025 is wildly unpopular. People do not like the Republican agenda. They hate it. The public hates it. And yet they're hearing so little about it. There's so little highlighting of the policy differences that all they're paying attention to is who's perkier, who's zippier, who can shout loudest.
Some things that are irrelevant. In Florida, they banned the book on banning books.
I know. And everybody's like, Biden's old. I'm like, yes, but Biden, the federal government, again, to return to our previous point, the federal government is a big team. It's an administration. He's filled his administration with competent people. And if Trump wins, he's going to fill his administration with MAGA loyalists. Never mind voting for the dude. You're voting for the government. You're voting for what federal government you want. You know what I mean? You're voting for who do you want running HUD? Who do you want running the Department of, do you want there to be a Department of Education or a Department of Transportation because they want to nuke those departments entirely. So like the conversation around the presidential election relative to the stakes of it, relative to the tangible, practical stakes is so surreal and disconnected. It is just like wearying to watch.
I agree with you. And part of it is that we have grown lazy as citizens. Right. And we assume that a president is something a president never has been. I mean, maybe Americans already assume a president's a dictator. I think they assume he's a magician. I know people mad at Joe Biden because Hamas and Israel are engaged in a terrible war, that's somehow his fault.
Or that SCOTUS or killed Dobbs, like.
Right. It's like snap his fingers.
That was you guys when you refused to vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Yeah. That's you guys who did that, not Joe Biden.
Right. So I mean, there are people who they don't like their options for whatever reason. But I keep telling everybody, look, this election is partly about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, but it's mostly about your future.
I mean, it's very little about about the two men. I mean, very little of it is about the two men. We are never before in my life has it been such a stark turning point. Like we are literally voting for what kind of country we want. Do we still want to be, the Project 2025, I think the right way to look at it is an explicit declaration of war on the idea of an egalitarian, multiracial, multi-ethnic democracy. Do we want to be that or not? Like Biden and the Democrats want to continue down that road. And the right very explicitly does not, very explicitly wants to revert back to a white, patriarchal, Christian society. Like that is the choice. The idea that we're like, who can do more push-ups is the criteria on which we're making this decision is so insane.
Insane. I mean, I look at Project 2025 and forgive me. I know everybody, it's the wrong thing to do and I can't help it. But like, I don't want to be a part of a country that, didn't read the book, right? Like, okay, so Mein Kampf was pretty darn clear. And you know what? It was there. Couldn't you see it? Like they wrote it. It was there.
I know.
Well,
and the thing is, like, there have been books after books after books written about the run-up to fascism in previously democratic countries, right? I mean, at this point, it happened so many times in the 20th century that it's practically a script, right? Like there's a whole genres of literature about it. And we are acting out the script in the most sort of like flat-footed, obvious, telegraphed way. Like, just the other day I was reading about like, business executives are sort of coming around to maybe Trump won't be so bad. Maybe we can control him and get something we want out of it. I was like, here we are in chapter 3 of the decline to fascism. The business community refuses to push back. Elites refuse to push back. The left is divided and at its own throat and unable to unify in resistance. Media elites are cowed. It's just like, it's all,
so we've seen this game before. Right. So we are not predestined to go that route.
It really is starting to feel that way.
No. I'm in Wisconsin right now. It doesn't feel that way. So like on many issues, and climate is a great example. The country has made progress not because of leadership from the government, but because individuals and citizens took their civic responsibilities seriously and worked sometimes for decades to raise concerns, to offer solutions, to advocate for change, and push for political results that made progress possible. So
that is true, but the right wing saw that happen. They saw that happen. They know how that works. And their explicit goal is to cut off those mechanisms of democratic feedback that allowed people to organize and have that effect, right? Like, I mean,
we can't let them.
What you get to with authoritarianism eventually is all those avenues get cut off, and the only way for the public to push back is just to rage and riot and get out on the streets in millions day after day after day. But that usually takes like decades of authoritarianism before that happens. You know what I mean? Like that's a long,
in Iran,
road.
I mean, Iran has been the religious dictatorship in Iran is going to last as long as the Soviet Union did. They're already almost there. I mean, they've been there a long time.
Yeah, and just like people's confidence that a second Trump term is just going to be another sort of bumbling farce like the first one is so terribly wrong and dangerous. I just don't think it is in any way guaranteed that we will have 2028 elections if Trump and MAGA take over in 2024. And that's like, again, like people, that sounds like alarmism to people, but like just go read what they say. Like the biggest intellectual movement on the right these days is explicitly saying democracy doesn't work. Democracy is not getting us what we want. Democracy is, we are losing our white Christian patriarchy under democracy. And so democracy's got to go. Like they're very, again, they're not like, the news is not getting to people, but the right wingers are less and less masking what they want. And they want an Erdogan style, Putin style strongman explicitly.
Yeah. And what we would give up is not just the date. I mean, we would give up so many things, right? But including like democracy actually, you know what? It is working. I mean, we threw out Donald Trump, and in its place, we've seen the best economic growth in the world.
I know.
We came out of COVID better than anyone in the world. We're doing better than anyone else in addressing climate change, finally. And we have a lot of ways to go.
This is how we're going to respond. This is how we're going to respond. Like we saved the country from descent into fascism. Barely, right? They tried. They had an armed coup attempt. We barely pulled the country back from the precipice, turned it around, grew the economy, reached full employment, have increased wages on the bottom end of the scale, have helped the middle class exactly like everybody said they wanted, passed amazingly ambitious climate legislation, sparked a manufacturing renaissance, just like literally everything that people said they wanted, and no one cares. No one's happy. No one, even the people who said they wanted it, no one, like there's something so broken in our information environment and our spirit. I don't even know what to call it. Like we're just incapable of sort of optimism and can-do spirit, even when things are happening right in front of us, even when what we wanted is happening right in front of us. And of course, if Biden had 4 more years, all of that would continue. The economy would continue to grow. You know, clean energy would continue to flourish. Manufacturing would continue to come in. And then in 2028, everybody could have their Gretchen Whitmer AOC ticket that they want. That's fine. You know, we can have the big primary in 2028. Like we can have a new generation. We can have a new whatever. We just got to get through this choke point, and we're getting ready to sacrifice a 200-year experiment in multiracial democracy because we're all just kind of pissy that we didn't get exactly what we wanted, and Joe Biden doesn't sing and dance well enough on TV. It's just, again, like, it's so surreal to me. I don't even know what to make of it anymore.
Well, I think what you make of it is pretty coherent and pretty clear. And I appreciate that, we'll go back to talking about climate and some stuff next time, but this was enormously appropriate and I think very helpful for people, particularly coming out of the experience of that debate. I'm grateful.
It's cathartic for me, Edwin. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. That was David Roberts. Just more interesting every time we talk. We're going to take a break, and then I'm going to take your questions.